started picking up every book I could lay my hands on the Kennedy assassination, and started reading and reading and reading, and lo and behold, after about 5 to 10 years of that, I came to the assumption that we were lied to by the Warren Commission, and there's a complete cover-up. And so I wanted to, in my study of 25 years of this event or more, I felt that turn them cell phones off. By the way, I know that the 38th governor of Minnesota did not believe the Warren Commission and did not believe the official story of the murder of our president. It's interesting because the mainstream media is a culprit in this. Many times you'll hear that here's the battle against you, and they'll say to you, well, if it was a conspiracy 50 years, someone would have talked, right? We've all heard that. Somebody would have talked. Well, the point is somebody has talked. Many people have talked. But mainstream media won't report that. They won't report to the general public when someone has talked. Richard Nixon, right on his infamous tapes. It's on his tapes. He said the Warren Commission was the biggest hoax ever pulled on the American people. And that was the President of the United States. He talked on my TV show, if you are followers of it, when we did JFK a couple years ago. E. Howard Hunt from Watergate fame, his son St. John Hunt, had audio, visual, and written confession from his father, a deathbed confession, and when you watch it, Howard Hunt looks totally within his family. And kudos to them, because they're phenomenal at researching. I don't have the patience for that. I'll read the research after they've dug it up, and I'll educate myself that way, but I'm computer illiterate. I don't own a cell phone, and I don't do computer, I don't send emails, I don't do any of those things. I found out, I'm 62 now, and it's interesting that as you grow older, you become your father. And you never dream it'll happen, because as growing up, I'll never be like my parents. And before you know it, when you're in your 60s, you look back and you start thinking, oh, gee, I'm just like my dad. And but there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. So I'll open up for questions right now, and that way we'll talk about what you would like to talk about. If you would, please stand when you state your question. Oh, and when I sign books, it's nothing personal, but I do not want to shake anyone's hand, and I'll tell you why. A couple years ago, I did it at a book signing. The next day, my temperature went up to 100 and something, and I spent 3 days flat on my back, sicker than a dog. And that's how colds, flu, and germs are spread. If you have it and you shake my hand, then I shake everybody else's hand here, and lo and behold, we're all sick by the end of the week. So nothing personal, but Jesse don't like to get sick. And when I head home, I like to be healthy too when I go home. So, yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Oh, it was very interesting. I'm probably the only elected official while elected. I'm the only one that I know of that has sat down and had 1 hour with Fidel Castro, and this was 10 years ago. Fidel today, I'm sure, is battling health. 8 people were later convicted, 4 sentenced to death, including the first female woman in history. But yet, they don't really tell you about that in the books, do they? It's always just John Wilkes Booth. They were also going to try to kill the Vice President and the Secretary of State. And notice how whenever it's a political assassination of modern times, the mainstream media teaches you all 3 names: Lee Harvey Oswald, James Earl Ray, Mark David Chapman. I'll ask you this, what's Charles Manson's middle name? The most notorious murderer in modern day history, and they don't teach you his middle name, do they? There's a reason for that. To narrow it down, to get it to where, you get conditioned. They condition you for all this, and we need to break that conditioning. Our country was founded with our forefathers for us to be vigilant. Like today, this whole government shutdown, it's our fault. It's our fault because we elect them. Stop voting for Democrats and Republicans and vote for anyone else. I've been saying it now for a decade. That's the only way to take the country back. The power's still ours if we want to use it. But we're not diligent enough. We're not doing what our forefathers told us to do. Yes, ma'am. How can you organize Jesse Ventura for president of New York? Well, thanks. You can put the pressure on Howard Stern to run with me. Besiege him, because there's a method to my madness, people, and I'll explain it to you. I despise the system we have in this country of electing officials. It's a system based completely on bribery. Bribery, the money. Well, I hate that, and they don't like to talk about my election, and I'll tell you why. I am the only elected official to a major governor, Congress, Senate, president who made more money doing the job than what I spent to get it. I only raised $300,000 to become the governor of Minnesota. It was all in $50 donations from people like you. I accepted no PAC money, no special interest money, and here's another thing. My 4 years in office as governor of the state of Minnesota, not once did I meet with a lobbyist. My first day in office, I told my staff, tell the lobbyists don't bother, they didn't elect me, I don't need to talk to them. And I never met with the official bribers, the guys that come in and bribe you. Well, I didn't get tempted by that because I never let them in the door. Now, here's why I need Howard. When I ran for governor of Minnesota, I had a statewide talk radio show. I was immediately suspended when I filed by the FCC. I had to go unemployed for 6 months while my two opponents were cashing government checks, my money. And obviously not doing their jobs because they were out campaigning like I was. Isn't that interesting? They hold one job, yet they can leave that job and campaign for another and don't even do the job they're supposed to be doing. Their subordinates do it. Shows they're not essential, don't it? Maybe they ought to be laid off. But anyway, that aside, I need Howard because Sirius Radio don't fall under the FCC, and we could use his show right up to Election Day. Right up to it. Plus, Howard even said to me, he said, you do the governing, let me raise the money. All Howard would have to do to his listeners is say, look, we need $10 a piece. We need $20 a piece. How much money do you think Howard would get? And how much influence would we be selling for $20? It's not, if you send us 20, trust me, you're not going to get in the door saying, gee, I sent you $20 and I need a favor. You know, I bought you a cup of coffee for lunch. That's about what it's equivalent to. But that's why I need Howard. Because I don't want to sell my values. I do not support the third party movement today. And I'll tell you why. Any third party to be successful is going to have to sell out like the other two. They're going to have to corrupt themselves. You've already got a two-headed monster. What do you need a three-headed one for? And here's what I'll win on if it's done, if it happens. I will win on, I believe, one issue alone. You want to focus it down and get one clear, concise message. Here's what it would be. I would give you people the opportunity to make history by electing the first president since George Washington, the father of our country, who does not belong to a political party. George Washington is the only president we've ever had who did not belong to a political party. If I run, you would get the opportunity to do that for the second time, and I think that would be wonderful. And I think that would send a huge message to the Democrats and the Republicans, as I call them. But it doesn't end there. If it happens, I still need you. I still need you. You can't just say, oh, the big guy will take care of it all. It don't work that way. Just like this whole Syrian war they tried to just stick us in. You know why we're not there? Because the phone calls to the senators and congressmen were running over 300 to 1 opposing going into Syria. Thank you. You're starting to wake up. You're starting to become vigilant. You're starting to become what our forefathers had in mind all along. Because good government happens when you hold your elected officials' feet to the fire. And so the fault lies with us. We're the ones that elected them. Yes, sir. Well, that means it was a flangeable bullet. It was an exploding bullet that hit his head. The Mannlicher Arcano is a Geneva Convention weapon. It can only shoot full